Welcome to Diaries of a Data Scientist, our podcast in which we share about what's important to break into data science, provide valuable insights also for senior data scientists, and invite interesting guests from different data science areas. We're Yasmin and Kate, we're both data scientists and mentors working in industry, and we are sharing here our thoughts and experiences. Let's go!
Hi guys, welcome to Diaries of Data Scientist. This is our 20th episode, and what we're really happy about is that it's our little happy birthday. Not today, but I would say by the end of September, beginning of October, because we're going to be turning 1 year, 12 months since we actually officially started. And I guess this is really wonderful opportunity to say that with this official start, our little small birthday, we're also going to be very remote for the next 6 months because Kate is in Brazil. So welcome to this chapter. Maybe we can call it even like, I don't know, season number 2 or something like that. Because we kind of create a lot of content for you, and we're definitely going to talk a lot about data science, how is it happening in Latin America, how is it happening in Brazil, and maybe how it is specifically happening in Sao Paulo. So we will see. That is why welcome. But today, what we're going to talk about is open sources in the data science community and why this is important from the business side, from the technical side for developers and data scientists as well. And then we're going to briefly talk about different platforms that you can right now immediately join. So
amazing. Welcome also from my side. Yeah, Diaries of a Data Scientist now more global than ever. And I mean, I'm so happy, Kate, that we anyway had this remote setup and we can just continue to create even more content for our listeners and viewers. And welcome to season 2. Let's get into the episode.
Yep, definitely. Okay, so as we announced, it is going to be, again, about the open sources and about why is that important. And maybe, I don't just mean that we had a little bit of different understanding from both of us sides. What we understand out of the open sources for the AI, right? Maybe I can share mine and that you can share yours also ideas, because that was pretty interesting for us that we kind of discovered maybe 10 minutes before the recording itself. And pretty much the way how I understand the open sources, specifically in the artificial intelligence on, like maybe we can also say Gen artificial intelligence, is that the open source is not only the model itself, but it's also the community of developers, of data scientists, that any person, and it's important, any person can join this community and contribute in order to enhance and develop more models, or maybe to enhance and improve documentation. And anyways, you will, like, from this kind of contribution, you will be having a lot of benefits as an expert. But I know, Yasmin, you also had a little bit different in your mind under the open sources for AI and Gen AI.
Yeah, so I was way more specific on, say, the latest generative AI open source contributions. I don't think that we have like a different understanding, but maybe just about splitting the episode. So today for me is a more general introduction into the topic of open source frameworks, platforms for AI. And then in the future episode, we're going to be more specific on open source generative AI models, everything around Llama and so on, that also really helped the open source community in generative AI to make progress. And I think it's a very important contribution also, that on the one hand side, we have commercial providers looking into making progress, and I mean, honestly, yes, it's not comparable in terms of the financial power which is behind it. But on the other side, the open source community is, as you said, basically free for everyone to contribute to. So they have like this swarm intelligence almost, and thousands and thousands of like smaller PCs can also have a lot of power. So we maybe know that still from the whole time around peer computing popping up and distributed computing, right? So I just love that we also have this in generative AI and can provide an really like a serious alternative to actual commercial providers.
Yeah, So I guess that, as you said, Rizwan, I'm just going to repeat it one more time for our people, that today is going to be more high-level episode about what is that, why is that important. And I guess we've already mentioned this a couple of times when we were discussing. I think that the position was developers advocate, that they are much more connected to the open sources activities, and this is their kind of primary job. And I guess we're going to link it as well, the number of this episode, in the comments below. So in order for you guys, if you got interested in this job position. And as well as we're going to have line up the next one, talking about more specifically different models, as you said, Llama, Bird, ChatGPT, and etc. So we can get more into the technical parts. And maybe right now, I know that we have a lot of students as our members and our listeners, and they would definitely right now ask a question. So I'm studying in the university, or I don't know, I'm working as a working student alongside with the studying in the university, or I'm going to different courses and etc. I mean, what is the reason of actually getting to the open sources communities? For me, because I am spending a lot of time from my side in order to get to the data science community. And right now I have to do something even on the top of that. So what is the benefits? Maybe we can start talking about this part.
Absolutely. And I think it's an absolutely valid question, because as you said, like already maybe studying full-time, working, but also if you've done with your studies, you're working as a full-time data scientist or software developer, right? There's maybe different reasons of getting into the open source community. And I also have some colleagues who are super, super active there and make major contributions. And I think for many, honestly, it's not really that they have like the super concrete agenda behind it, but it's actually for fun, right? So sometimes maybe the things that you're working on as a student or as a also full-time developer is not everything like which is fulfilling your whole interest in that area, right? So I think for many it's really just that they love to build and work on projects. And I mean, you can do that in your free time, you can do that for your own on your own, but I think it's so nice to just connect with a couple of other people and work on something together.
Definitely.
And you know, it's also like this kind of social factor, that developing is not a job that you can do. I mean, you can do it on your own, but it's really getting more successful when you have this kind of diverse interdisciplinary team where different people bring in different skills, right? And I think that's also the whole thought around open source contributions, that you can connect with other people and you can work on something together. And for some reason, you can also divide and conquer, right? So if you really want to make a major contribution and you're like the sole person working on it, it's just gonna take a lot of time. But if you have like a remote, fully distributed team working on stuff, maybe even in different time zones, because time zones don't matter, as long as you have a good source control and versioning control, right? I think this is amazing, and you can just pull something off in your free time with your own bare hands. And I think for many, it's really about the fun. I think, yes, there are more factors to it. Like, I mean, you get in your network. Yes, career factors, like more, I would say, more, let me call it strategic thoughts behind it. Yes, you're building a network because you're getting to know people, and if you're making very nice contributions, right, and you're picking up fast, I mean, you also are starting to be this kind of go-to person, and the community maybe even like recognizes your contributions. You're maybe invited and based on that to events, to conferences, if you're like your package is super popular. And I think this can be a huge career factor, but also I think it's about showing possible other future employers what you can do, maybe all besides the things that you're doing in your company or as a student, which you're not always going to be able to share about, right? So that's why we're working for a company.
Definitely.
It's proprietary, so in order to showcase your skills and demonstrate your skills, it's about building up your portfolio. You can do that with small projects on GitHub and so on, but why not also make them like open source, make them public, so other people can benefit and can also give you feedback?
Yeah, so I guess we can summarize it like kind of the facts that firstly, it's definitely to have fun. And like what I was listening to you, I kind of got myself into the thought that probably when you're going to the developers or being a data scientist, like working with any mathematics like programming, computer science, etc., probably you would be doing that because you like it. And I'm not sure if you can really code if you don't like and hate this process and got constantly frustrated. So definitely it should be fun, but that at some point of time, you, even if it is fun and like it's like your craft and you're enjoying this process, you have to do some money on this, right? Because this is how our world is kind of functioning. And that to this, you have to add a little bit of calculated or strategic point of view in order to understand that if you're joining open sources, you will definitely, like your profile will capture and attract more attention from the company's perspectives. And also what you said is about definitely networking and collaboration with different people. And like from the networking, you will be invited to different conferences, doing different projects, and develop and enhance your skills rapidly, definitely. So I guess that for me, the most important thing from out of this bucket of benefits is going to be definitely the contribution to your career. Because I don't know, Yasmin, how is it for you? But I guess we're both in that sense very much career-oriented people, and that is why I would definitely look at that as the prior number one for myself, that if I would decide to spend 2 more hours per day, let's say, of my free time, that it will be definitely something because I want to go, I don't know, to work for Apple or work for Amazon, or like big, huge enterprises like as BASF. And then maybe the next part, which is also really interesting for me, is that I remember myself being a student in the universities, and I don't know how is that right now, but I definitely remember back in the day, several years ago, that even on master's degrees, the project that you had, or like project that we had in my university, it was not necessarily fun all the time. And it was more to, understand concepts, more to be more disciplined, more to understand the pipeline structure and how it is better to solve the cases. But I think when you are connected to the open sources, this is not a demo version anymore, as if it is in the universities, because in the universities, that's the demo version. I would put it like this. And that in the open sources, this is the real thing, that you're trying to collaborate with people in order to help the other people and companies to benefit out of this. And this has definitely more responsibility to this. And the ability to work with maybe senior developers and senior data scientists, it's a totally different, I think, kind of perception.
For me, the major difference is the problem of, am I actually solving a relevant problem? And as you said, right, at university, that's not really the main factor that the university is looking at when they're setting up projects and stuff like that. It's about maximizing the amount of, say, learnings or study time, getting it out of the project. But it's not always like a relevant problem. So I would say it's more like an artificial environment and artificial conditions being set up. Data is usually way more cleaner than what you would find in the real life, and that's exactly not the case when you want to make relevant open source contribution. Your contribution is not really worth a lot, maybe besides you having learned how to write it. If not many users can use it or will use it because they just don't have this actual problem, or they don't see it as a relevant problem for themselves, right? So it's also about thinking about what are really problems that you can and want to solve. So it's providing an actual value for users. And I think this is also a kind of entrepreneurial little bit of mindset that is also helping you in many other situations at life, also as part of like your maybe full-time job.
Yeah, I just got another idea. When you are developing something alongside with your studies or alongside with a different full-time position, perhaps it will give you a better understanding of whether you like it or not like it. Because even in the data science field, you would have a lot of subfields, right? Right now we have Gen AI as a new, totally different kind of category and a new whole space in there. And for example, for me, I'm not such a fan of that because, I'm more a traditional person coming from this kind of mathematics and stats background. And that is why for me, it's much more interesting to go maybe to the research part, rather than going for the chatbots and etc. And probably there are also a lot of like people as with kind of the same approach to the different tasks and problems. And for some person, it's going to be much more interesting, for example, to use maybe Gen AI models, but for, I don't know, regressions, because I know that right now we do have this potential. And maybe for other people, as for you, computer vision, please go ahead and just be in this subfield and develop something cool and right in there. And I think, yes, this is what I was just trying to say, that it will just give you a better understanding whether you want to land your position.
Exactly.
Because
way more freedom to explore. Yeah.
Because this is what I heard a lot on my from my mentees when they are in the university and they're like, Kate, I don't really understand where to go because it's a lot and it feels like I want to do a lot, but it also feels at the same time that I haven't explored that till that degree to really have reasonable decision in that part. And it's also going to be pretty interesting, I guess.
Yeah, the choices are not getting easier with every new exciting field opening up. And I feel also nowadays there's a way bigger transparency about, I mean, definitely being boosted by the widespread availability of the World Wide Web, that you're just having way more transparent what are different opportunities for you as a developer, as a data scientist, data engineer, and so on, and including also all of the different fields that you could get active in. And sometimes this kind of transparency and seeing it as a whole can just feel super overwhelming. And that's why I feel open source is a really cool activity which can help you figure out, as you said, what you want and make your contribution, get into different fields, right? And just being able to also take your time with it. You know, nobody is rushing you. Like you're taking as many user stories or work packages as you can, as you feel like it. And you know,
yeah, definitely.
That is, I think, and also what I wanted to say is I have some great colleagues also who really then had worked in bigger like communities, bigger contributions, and kind of got promoted internally to work package lead or work stream lead, right? Basically then also shaping the work package for 5-10 people who are working with them. And I think this is also a really great way for you to test. Are you excited and interested in getting into leadership activities? Or is it something that you don't want to pursue? Or also like helping you to get towards this kind of technical lead positions? And especially if you're trying to break into that technical lead and maybe at your company there's not many opportunities to showcase and demonstrate to top management your ability. Having done that in open source contribution and basically having realistic expectations but also experience to show for it, I think that is amazing. I think it's just also open source contribution could help you figure out what you want as a professional. And there are not many cases, but there's a small amount also of a small number of people who can actually also live of their open source contributions. But that obviously is connected to a little bit more efforts, because I mean you have to make a super popular open source contribution and maybe work on something like a freemium model in that you know, the baseline offer of your like package is free. Open source is also not always meaning free, also just you know,
of course,
to have said that, but many cases are check the licenses also, right? But so for those people who can live of it, they probably have like a free version, and then they have maybe an extended feature set for the premium version, for which then people have to pay, right? And if you do it right, some people can actually live off that, or you're working maybe with different sponsors who help you be able to contribute full-time open source while be able to cover your like living expenses. Again, it's only a smaller number, but there are definitely examples that you could take a look at. Yes, it's possible. What I would like to take a look now is like coming from the business perspective, so from the organizational side. I see there's two positions, right? Organizations who are consuming open source contributions, and then also the side of organizations contributing to open source. So let's dive a little bit into that.
Why would both of them?
Exactly. Why would an organization want to do that, right? I think the
Yeah,
consumption part
definitely.
is way more straightforward and way more obvious. So let's start
Yeah,
with that.
so what I just thought about that from the business perspective is I can definitely do understand companies that are consuming the open sources because it is, firstly, it is for free for them,
In
right?
many cases.
Sometimes, in many cases, yes. Right now, definitely, as you said a couple of minutes ago, that some open sources are still paid to like at some point you have to
Yeah.
do that, but
Yeah.
for
Or
some
at least
packages you don't
say,
have to.
exactly, or at least say like open source is not always synonym with like free of
Free.
charge. Yes.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And this is, I do see definitely the benefits on the costs side. And
Mm.
also perhaps is that is also pretty interesting for companies that using the open source packages, knowing that there is a huge community that is validating, checking, enhancing, and improving the packages, it also kind of takes a burden from your shoulders as a company in order to hire a kind of a huge data department with many, many developers in order to do this work. Pretty much they're just taking this and utilize that for their purposes. Would you
Yeah,
agree in this
absolutely.
sense?
No, absolutely. I think you have to basically compare to two alternatives, right? Proprietary software that you would buy in, and obviously you'd also expect a vendor, especially if you're like paying a lot of money for something, that vendor is also thoroughly checking the software. But from recent examples, we saw that not every update is thoroughly tested the way that maybe it should have been. So yes, there's also risk there. And the other alternative is, as you said, right? All of your internal developers having to start everything from scratch themselves instead of being able to rely on already well-tested, well-loved open source contributions and packages. And I think it's also a little bit depending on the programming language, even though I feel that the most of the languages are way more, say, getting into the direction that there's huge contributions and packages and things that you extend them with, right? And I feel with Python, I just saw it first that you're really living off this package community. So I think this is the alternatives that I would compare it to. And there I feel like it's not about only doing that or the other, right? So it's about finding a good portfolio for yourself as an organization. Where do you buy in stuff? Where are open source contributions that you're wanting to consume? And what are the things that you think your developers should develop proprietarily for yourself, which is something maybe also to do with competitive advantage. And you can mix those parts depending on the licensing connected. So I think being able to also see, based on if you're allowed to do that, what you can customize and how to extend those contributions further. I think this is really, really cool. And definitely, and that's why it should be a mix, there's a big risk of getting locked into vendors and into proprietary software if you're not careful, right?
And being totally dependent on them.
Yes, exactly. And then this dependence usually comes at the price tag of, if you're dependent, like your negotiation position is super weak. So you basically have to take anything like that they're asking for and not really having an alternative. And that's
and
never
also,
a good position.
I just remember what happened recently with Microsoft. That the entire system was just like shut down. And this is a perfect example when you are dependent on one thing as an organization, as a company. And I also wanted to add that it's also a little bit about the innovations, right? This is how we can see what is happening with OpenAI and ChatGPT. Again, your disclaimer, please check the licenses, please check the pricing, and etc. But this is definitely indeed a cool example of the innovations perspective for the companies. And I'm not sure if we can find the statistics, but I guess we can try to see how many startups were actually founded based on the OpenAI services.
And it's also all about like margins, right? So basically, as long as like you're the startup, you're buying in maybe tokens from one of these major providers, but you're able to provide your service at a like an upper cost, right? And then you can just take the margin between them, and there you go, having your business model. If it's the most sustainable one, if you ask me, surely not. But we've seen businesses making profit of it, and I think it's mostly leveraging the amount of, say, not understanding as many other traditional companies maybe, or not having the skill set or expertise or talent to just do it themselves, right? And then you just have to rely on such a service, which is maybe super, super basic, but it's there. You don't really have an alternative. There you go. And I think also what for me is the most visible is that sometimes the open source community, I think there's different say areas. So sometimes the open source community seems to be slower and kind of, lagging behind, just because maybe for some research areas you just really have a lot of, say, financial power or certain connections and expertise, and then the open source community is like catching up, right? But sometimes I also feel that the open source community is basically setting the bar and is being a little bit more innovative than maybe some enterprises, which maybe take longer time for whatever reasons until they're putting out something proprietary in that area, right? And so I think it could also be a matter of speed, and if you're willing to experiment and explore a little bit more in certain areas, open source contributions might also be a major thing to look at.
Maybe I'm just trying to understand you. In the very beginning, you said really intriguing phrase that we can look at that process from both sides: the companies that are doing and contributing, and the companies that are actually consuming. And I guess so far we have been just talking about the companies that are consuming the technologies that are open there on the market. And maybe let's move a little bit to the first part that you mentioned, that the companies, why is that important for the companies in order to create the positions within the companies for people in order to be part of those open source communities?
Absolutely. So let's do that. And I mean, good news, you can do both at the same time, right?
Of course.
You can be a consumer of open source contributions and using package. I think it's so normal in organizations that usually you don't even see yourself as a consumer of that. It's just so normal in that area. And oftentimes, honestly, I also don't think that there's a good transparency to top management about maybe how much they are consuming, because sometimes it's just about smaller building blocks also in software, right? That maybe that is something that also just the developers decide, and probably never reaches the ears or the eyes of the top management. And so I think there's just in general not a good transparency or awareness about that in many organizations. And then I think when it's about contributing to open source, it's way more transparent, because you definitely have to check here also with your management, right? It's not every piece of software that you're going to build for your company as a developer or data scientist and so on, you're going to be allowed to open source, and not every piece of software is also worthy or, is, say, safe enough to contribute. And I think it's really the topic also, again, of competitive advantage and making a very clear and informed decision about what you think is like a good contribution and not. And there's many reasons for also saying, like, for many things we are not wanting to contribute that, either because we put a lot of money and expertise into it, and if you're open sourcing that, your competitors maybe could just take that more or less depending on the license. And there's also really advantages to it, so let's get into it. So if you're contributing also as a company, I feel like the major thing is making yourself aware in that community as a possible employer. So I think the major part is really like that employer branding and talent acquisition and talent retention, because again, many developers, data scientists and so on, they also want to work for an organization and a company which is like, being active and setting a good example, and which other people also recognize as a good employer in the field, right? So I think this is really also the topic of talent retention and building a brand of, yes, we as organization, we're not just like consuming, we're not just taking, but we're also giving something back to the community. We're being innovative, and we also, work on things that are mattering to people, not just for financial reasons, but because we're generally interested to bring that community forward.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was my pitch about
No,
why you should
it's no.
contribute.
That is amazing because I'm just listening to you and trying to like sponge and just absorb everything what you're saying pretty much.
I mean, for those organizations which are a tech-first company and also someone who's actually selling software as a product, right? For company in the industry, usually software is not a product. They maybe selling cars, they maybe selling chemicals or different kind. So for them, it's maybe farther away, but it can still be a relevant topic. For other companies which are actually tech companies and they're selling, I think the value proposition of contributing to open source is even stronger, because then it's also really about building a brand in that community who's maybe also exactly the community possibly influencing buying decision of what software they would like to work with and consume, right? And there, this whole freemium model is really, really strong, and that's where also the developer advocates and companies
this is
are
what
really
I was about
like,
to say. Yes,
exactly, that is then their job to really also work with that open source communities or also the clients of that software. And I think for them the value proposition is even stronger. But again, right, also I think industrial companies or these more traditional companies, in the meanwhile, there's really major part of IT playing a big role, especially coming in with generative AI. So also there, the question of getting the right talent and keeping the right talent for a certain amount of time. It's really, really important. So, and also here, honestly, there's so much expertise in those companies, and the people from different backgrounds, they are so super, super smart people. And I think for them, it's also really cool to be able to, next to bring the company forward, also maybe be able to make contributions to open source and showcase that to their network as well.
And I see right now, after your beautiful speech, I see right now a cool opportunity as well for people that are in the like technical field, like data science field in our sense. But once you go more, maybe like drifting away from being developers and being like, get your hands dirty every single day, more into the maybe business side, and be a little bit in the middle of the techie guys and business guys. And I guess this is also pretty beautiful factors that you can pitch to your managers, you can pitch to your top managers and to the founders of the company why they need to get into this totally interesting field for them.
Yeah, and at that point, I think it's a really, really good time to say that I'm really proud also of the organization that we're working for, which is BSF, to also be making contributions to open source community, having their own GitHub site and many different repositories, and also within basically my team and our internal data and AI Academy, having been supporting one of the open source contributions, which is the Mambula package, or basically it's actually called Mamba Tabular. So it's a tabular deep learning package building on top of Mamba structures. And honestly, it's super, super cool. Go check it out and see if that is something that is also relevant for you. And as mentioned, tabular deep learning, many data sources is still tabular data, right? That's also this kind of more traditional setup. You will find it a lot. It's just not the reality that everything is text and audio and video and imaging and so on, right? It's just the reality that we really also work a lot with these tabular structures. So deep learning package for that sound like a really, really cool idea.
Yeah, it is totally true. And I want just to add to this point is that I have checked this a little bit, guys, for you. So you would also understand what is that about. If you have ever, which I'm sure you have used that before, like PyTorch and like TensorFlow platforms, you know that sometimes if it is like your first time to work with these packages, it's gonna be a little bit of the pain in the ass. Why is that? Because you wouldn't have yeah, I had to say that, I'm sorry, because you would have
you would not have that out.
I'm sure, yes, because like in there, what you will have to do all the time, it does not have the same structure or the same format as with the other packages. For example, if you would have, I don't know, use decision tree, random forest, you would always have the nice kind of pipeline that you call in the function, do the parameters, do the testing training, and that you would put predict fit functions, which is like working beautifully, and you don't need to waste and spend a lot of time trying to, I don't know, do something in there as it is with the PyTorch and TensorFlow, unfortunately. And that is why this is the beauty of this package, is that you can definitely use and for sure use those kind of functions. And it's specifically working really, really nice for the classifications and regression tasks. So therefore, those fit and predict functions will be really handy for you, and you will not be crying. So with that, we kind of open right now, I guess, a huge new topic discussing different platforms where people can contribute. So we have filtered out, guys, for you 4 different interesting platforms that you can use for Gen AI tasks. You can also use them for computer vision. You can also use them for regressions, classifications, and etc. And what I want just to say in here in the very beginning, that it was for us, I guess it was really, really important to just bring the platforms and the communities where they are creating packages, so they are contributing to the world, to the community of techie people, but also with the sense that any single person can get into these communities and also contribute. Because honestly, like what I was doing, pre-checking, sometimes you would have to fill in the questionnaire why you would love to be part of this community, and people will decide if it is okay for them to
if you're worthy
accept you or not. It's like, it kind of looks a little bit of the hiring process, which is, I guess, for communities and open sources, definitely not the case. So the first one is Hugging Face. And for you guys, if you haven't heard about this, I'm going to just to read it aloud. That it was founded in 2016, and it pretty much started as a chatbot company and quickly became the open source natural language processing models, as well as you can also use it for computer vision and etc. And they also have a pretty community in Discord with over 80,000 people to contribute in there. So if you want to do something like that, please go ahead on their website and you can see their GitHub page. You can see how you can contribute, code of conduct. You can see their teams, their project, and etc. So it's really, really awesome. And I guess you can find a lot of different nice packages in there. I'm using Hugging Face specifically for NLP tasks, honestly. But you can also have Bird. You can also have T5. Honestly, T5, I've never used this. I had to kind of got myself a little bit more familiar with this one, GPT, and etc. And also, I guess, which is really, really important, is that they provide nice data sets. And I was thinking about data sets from the perspective that if you are a student and perhaps if you're doing a thesis, this is something that is going to be really handy for you, because I know, like, maybe Yasmin, for you was also the hassle to understand which data to use, because I was doing this outside of the companies and I had to find something open source which will be nice to use and will be accepted by the universities.
Yeah, it's a great resource. And just saying and keeping it short, Hugging Face for me really, it's really incorporating everything I think about the open source community that is so fun. So just looking at their like logo of and the name Hugging Face, right? And this having this emoji in mind, you see that if you're maximizing developers, like, enjoyment to use their resources and really, putting things and functionality out that is targeting this group of people that is actually consuming their resources. I think you can really see how successful you can do, and I think they made a great journey. Definitely. And just having said that, there's a company behind Hugging Face as well, right? Yes. So they also have the freemium model, so they have many free features, big open source part, but they also have like features which are super fun and where you can pay for and then also get like the next level kind of experience. I can definitely also recommend to check it out.
Yeah, for sure. So I've also checked their blogs yesterday and their articles.
Great resources.
And it's really great resources. And I think that they're really constant with the formatting and visuals. All of them are within this emoji Hugging Face.
Corporate identity.
Yes.
Yeah, really nice.
I love it as well. Yeah. So what else do we have?
Oh yeah, we have TensorFlow Hub. So also checking the notes to be correct here. Yes, it was launched by Google in 2018. So I think many people are already aware that TensorFlow is very strongly connected with Google also as a company. And it's an open source repository, and which is containing basically pre-trained machine learning models that you can use to then like fine tune basically and specialize them, but also which you can use directly for deployment. And it's basically smoothly integrating into the overall TensorFlow ecosystem, which is pretty big. Obviously, they are demonstrating and including popular models like a BERT, which also many people are already aware of in the NLP area, but also like a generative adversarial network, a big gun, and the GPT-2 model back then, I think it was also still at that time really open AI in the terms of that it was open, and people were also able to check out what is the architecture fully and so on. And yeah, so also here you can contribute yourselves, you can write code, you can write tests and so on. And there's a big also community on Stack Overflow, which is helping you to move forward. Honestly, Stack Overflow is also, we didn't mention that today, I think as a separate resource, but it also really has this like nature of open source and people helping each other, and basically as long as you're having valuable contributions,
of course,
more people can use that. And just love it.
One joke from my side, you just brought up Stack Overflow, and when I was going through the resources, I guess kind of a week ago, it was night and I was already like in a sleepy position, and I was like, TensorFlow Hub. Oh, that is Stack Overflow. Stop. Stack Overflow has its own contributing platform. What? So I, like, because it was like, because they have kind of similar sounds, and it was midnight, my brain was not breathing, and I'm just confused and thought that TensorFlow Hub or TensorFlow equals Stack Overflow, and I was totally shocked. I was like, I didn't even kind of got attention to this point until yesterday when I was going again through our notes. I was like, oh my God, just imagine if I would say this on the recording, that this is, guys, the same. I mean, you're not a data scientist like
I would have
anymore.
Stopped you there, Kate, and that's why we have the post-processing.
Yes, post-processing part. But yeah, and here what I really want to add as well. So guys, as Yasmin said, that you can do a lot of things in there. You can contribute a lot. Writing code, checking notebooks. You can also answer questions on Stack Overflow. You can even post on LinkedIn and etc. So with that, what I'm trying to say right now is that going through the communities is also really helps you to understand what kind of job you would love to do when you are actually working in a company. Because when you are working as a data scientist, and I guess it's kind of the same for any developer, you perhaps will need diversity sometimes in your project. It shouldn't be like 6 project regression. You will get sick after a month, I guess, of doing the same thing every single day. And that is for, you will need to have sometimes, okay, here I'm going just to be, I don't know, like a project lead. Here I would be doing something with the regression. And here, maybe I will just go ahead and work with my working student or my interns in order to check the code. And here I will be in teaching, mentoring, and etc., which is really also nice and interesting. And I guess this is also kind of another view of the benefits for technical people, especially if you're still studying, just to check it out for yourself. This diversity option in the projects that you have. And the third one, honestly, I don't know how to pronounce this correctly. I guess it is called 𝖸lis𝗎ti𝗂. What do you think is? I think it is pronounced that.
Sounds good.
Sounds good. Like, at least it's written the same way that I'm pronouncing this one. So this is also the open source community that started in 2020. And they pretty much started as a Discord community, just talking specifically about GPT-3. And I guess I very much love that they started as a community in the Discord, because this is something that I would also kind of understand out of this community open source events and platform. And right now, since they also wrote it on their website that since right now we have a lot of people talking about ChatGPT, they kind of shifted their focus to be more into, interpretability and alignment within the AI. So they're not trying to make, I guess, models more stable or more scalable. And they're trying just to add this interpretability into the models, which is a really nice topic again of, I guess, 2020. Starting from 2020, it's XAI, which is explainable artificial intelligence. So they're focusing on this part. And I guess I will not go through the different names of the popular models because you can definitely go in there and check it out. But what I very much love is that they have the research community, and you can see on the website their core team members, their founders, members, and just open source contributors. And you can also just sign up when they're into the Discord and continue enhancing their products.
Nice. I did use one of the models, which is GPT-J, as part of this like bigger platform. I think it was called GPT for all. And I think GPT-J is one of like the models that you can download also locally even and can run locally on your laptop, which is pretty cool. It's a 6 billion parameter model, so it's one of the smaller ones for sure. I mean, 6 billion is still pretty big, but
amazing.
Yeah, so let's wrap this episode up. We've already kept you enough from your open source contributions, which are surely working on right now. Let's wrap it up with 𝖤on, or like the large scale AI open network. Was founded in 2021, so still pretty recent, I would say. It's focusing on providing large open data sets and pre-trained models for the AI community. And let me just add here, right? We've talked a lot of open source code, but as we've already heard with Hugging Face, it's as important to also have access to data sets that you're allowed to use for training models. So there's like this whole area around open data sets. And just, that everyone's understanding, right? Open source does not necessarily only mean code as that or models.
Yes.
And 𝖤on is basically funded by donations and public research grants. So also here you can see, right, that in order to, I think, really, really move forward, you need a couple of people who really also drive such a topic and maybe more or less work also full time on things, right? As at least if you have very ambitious goals with that open source contributions. It's operated mostly via Discord, and I'm pretty sure that you've heard about their popular models, which are Stable Diffusion. It was definitely one of the most groundbreaking open source models in the area of text to image, and it's really inspired a lot of people also to get into the topic of AI because it's just so fascinating to see what you can do with it, but also clip. And personally, I also still know it from my time in basically
in uni
when I was at the end of my master's. It's a zero-shot image classification, and it was really, really cool to check out.
Okay, computer vision person talking. I love this conversation.
Yeah, my heart still beats for it, for sure.
Oh, I can imagine.
Amazing. And with that, thank you so much for enjoying our 20th episode, which is also the start of this second year of Diaries of a Data Scientist. And we love to hear from your perspective about your feedback. Leave us a comment on YouTube. You can even leave us voice messages on Spotify. So we would love to hear your voice as well, since we're putting out our own. And yeah, let us know if you're also interested in different kind of topics that we should cover for you. Have an amazing day, and greetings from Germany and Brazil.
Yeah,
bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. This was Diaries of a Data Scientist by Yasmin and Kate. And if you enjoyed the episode, remember to check out our YouTube channel and our LinkedIn pages for more engaging content from the data science world. Thank you for today, and seeing you in the comments.